the Halloween episode. It aired a week later. This is Out of the Darkness. I wonder if this is kind of taken out at Star Trek. It's ironic. Star Trek, they go into the darkness. Star Wars, they go out of the darkness. But anyway, in this episode, Hera and Sabine go on a supply run, and turns out there's danger, things don't go wrong, and through it they bond. Gee, this isn't like another episode of Rebels we just saw earlier. Fighter Flight! So yeah, I mean, I didn't like this episode again. I think a lot of it is just have been spoiled by such great children's programming, and especially given how great a lot of the writing on Clone Wars was. Yeah, it's gonna be hard for me. I'm warming up to it a bit, but yeah, I still don't buy it. But there was some stuff I liked. I like how for once the show is actually letting the characters breathe. Like, this episode was more... It was a lot more about the characters. There wasn't as much running around. Like, the whole episode is just us getting to know Hera, getting to know Sabine, and I do like how the show was taking time to do that. I mean, again, if we're going to care for these characters, we need to get to know them a bit. And I do like how we finally get to learn Sabine's story a bit. I would have liked some flashbacks, or to actually see that, or be in... I mean, I'd say go back to Mandalore, but I feel like the show wants to feel separate from the Clone Wars. Also, Clone Wars, I don't think the show quite has the budget to recreate Mandalore, although I'll talk more about the budget restraints in a bit. Although, I'd really like to see a comic book or a novel about Sabine's life at the Imperial Academy on Mandalore. I feel like that could be interesting, and also I'd like some nods to the Clone Wars, although... First, I'd like to hear a novel about what was supposed to happen to the Clone War, to Mandalore and the Clone Wars, although hopefully Filoni will put that out eventually. But yeah, I'd really like a comic or novel exploring that, because A New Dawn novel was really good at allowing us to get to know Kanan. And... oh yeah, and by the way, I'm really looking forward to the comics that released that Greg Weisman is working on that are going to explore Kanan's backstory post-Order 66. But I digress. So there was some interesting stuff. I do like Sabine's concept of how she doesn't want to take things at face value. I mean, especially how she didn't like that with the Empire. I wish the show had fleshed that idea out a bit more, but I do like how they threw it out there. It was nice to see two female leads together, although I still think Bo-Katan is the most badass Mandalorian. I really want to see the Bo-Katan arc plan for Clone Wars, but I digress. The action was fun, it was fun action. I mean, despite the limitations of budget and stuff, they did a nice job. I also like how they are kind of addressing how Sabine is questioning their contact. I forget what his name is, but Star Wars Underworld brought that up. Is this guy with them? Is he against them? It's going to be interesting. I'm really curious if we ever get to meet him. I'm pretty sure he's some sort of evil motivations. I mean, this is like the second time third time they've followed information he's given them and gotten sent to danger. First was in Old Masters when his information led them to the Inquisitor. Then in the opening we see them getting attacked by TIE fighters because he didn't provide enough security. And also this cave instance. I mean, they had no idea the monsters were there. You think the contact would let them know. It's like the Chancellor. It's like this clearly obvious bad guy, and yet no one seems to really pick up on the fact that he might be evil. I mean, Hera says we'll take whatever we get, but, at some point, it should be obvious he might not be on your side, but hopefully they'll address that. And I hope we meet him some point. Preferably this season. I don't want it to get dragged out for multiple seasons. So, yeah. I also liked Ezra and Zeb's banner. It kind of reminds me a lot of the banner between the Human Torch and the Thing. I do like this sort of group dynamic on the show. I mean, it could be handled a bit better, but I do like it. It's like the Fantastic Four. You have this family living together, and they don't get along. And yeah, the Human Torch. If you read the Fantastic Four comics, the original ones, Stanley and Jack Kirby did, the Human Torch and the Thing butted heads a lot, and Zeb and Ezra's banner reminds me of that, and it's kind of amusing. Although it does annoy me, though, because Fight or Flight seem to move past that. They seem to get over that, and I just feel like the show kind of forgot about that. And, so, yeah, that kind of bothered me. And this just felt like a rehash of Fight or Flight in terms of both the story they were telling and Zeb and Ezra's banter. Also, the dialogue I felt like was a little weak. A lot of it was really corny and cliche. I mean, especially when Sabine and Hera are on the Phantom. They're shooting the enemies. It's like they're just shouting out corny line after corny line. It's like, there's too many of them. We need to hold out. It's like, how many cliche lines are you gonna say in 1 minute? And then there's like one point where Hera just recycles. I forget, it's either Sabine or Hera, but they recite a line they ripped it directly from the Clone Wars. It's like the line, you have to trust me, you need to trust me now, which coincidentally really close to this one line from the Clone Wars, you have to trust me now. It's like the line Ahsoka says to Anakin in the Season 5 finale, the final arc of Season 5. So yeah. The animation, I know I like to bash it. It's not bad. Again, the backgrounds look really nice and beautiful. But, again, there are clear budget limitations. I mean, the character models, not really good. Although the creatures look nice, but I think a lot of that just had to do with the fact that they were in the shadows a lot, and we never really got a good look at them, so I thought that was a kind of clever way. Because I feel like if we saw them in the light, they would look really dumb and cartoony. And also, the imagination's much stronger than anything any computer could produce. Yeah, character animation still bothers me. I mean, there's in the opening when they're being chased by TIE fighters, like Hera has a default face on it, and if you don't know what default face is, it's where the face really doesn't move or have much expression. Like the eyes will just sort of stand still, and the mouth will just open like this. It's like if I were to talk like this, as opposed to. Like, Kingdom Hearts uses it a lot, especially in the early games. And another thing, I'm not going to fault the show too much for this, but it's very clear that they can't show a variety of locations because that would cost time and money, which the show doesn't have because Disney's not giving them big a budget. And also the fact that they only had a year to put this season together. So the show's been recycling locations a lot. Anytime we're seeing a new location, it's usually in a very small dose. Like if we're going to a new planet, we won't get to see that much of the planet. Like the planet in Droids in Distress. We only got a couple rooms, and they all looked very simple, more or less the same. The Imperial Academy was very simple, not many rooms. In this episode, we just got to see a chunk of the planet, and also we reused the Ghost and Lothal a lot. I mean, although that I'm willing to okay with because it's very clear they're establishing that they're dealing with the Imperials on a more local basis, not a global basis. Although it does beg the question of why in the world haven't the Inquisitor or Agent Kallus tracked them down yet. I mean, especially considering their actions are primarily confined to Lothal, you think they could just really crack down on Lothal, you could find them. So yeah. But yeah, I'm warming up to the group. I'm finding them a bit more entertaining. It's just the corny dialogue takes me out of it. I hope we get to know Kanan more soon. Because I feel like I've known better from the novel that they released than the show. And one last thing I want to give the show credit for, I like how we aren't encountering the Inquisitor or Agent Kallus every season. I mean, one thing Clone Wars did a lot in its earlier seasons, and this might be a bit better than some of the earlier stuff from Season 1. It's just... But again, although a lot of me reviewing Rebels is me comparing it to the later stuff on Clone Wars. But anyway. Clone Wars, like, early season, while I did enjoy Clone Wars, like, a lot of the early seasons, like, particularly season 1, it was a lot of just Republic fighting Separatists, and I get that's a war, but every plot, it was like, they go to this planet, there's a general who thinks they can beat them, but then the good guys beat them, and eventually the show moved past and got more sophisticated, it was less good versus evil. But I am glad the show, it's not every episode has to feature the Empire, like, we don't see any stormtroopers in this. We see TIE fighters, but that's it. But what I mean is, like, not every episode Agent Kallus shows up, not every episode the Inquisitor shows up. And I do like that, because it could get a little redundant if we encounter them every episode and fight them. And they are entertaining villains, and I feel like they could lose their sense of danger if the show just were to constantly have them show up. And that's all I have to say on this episode. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. And as always, like, dislike, comment, subscribe. This is JStarC60, and may the Force be with you.